Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first online session of 302 Human Behavior in the Social Environment 2. What we're going to be talking about today for this abbreviated lecture is understanding groups in the macro environment, specifically task groups. So this should complement what you have already learned or are learning in 342, your meso practice class. So we're going to talk about task groups. So you probably already know this, but a task group is a collection of people applying principles of group dynamics to solve problems. They develop innovative ideas. They formulate plans, usually to solve problems. They achieve goals within an organization or a community. And why should we care about task groups? Because task groups are kind of what addresses all the problems that happen in our world. So I've spoken before about what we've done with the curriculum in the undergraduate social work program. And what we did basically was form a task group to address some of the gaps that we were seeing in our own curriculum. So we were a collection of people as faculty members. We were applying the principles of group dynamics. We were trying to develop innovative ideas as relates to the curriculum. We were formulating a plan for how to change courses and implement those changes, and we were working to achieve the goal of giving the very best education that we can. So there are 6 concepts that characterize groups. The first is communication, which is the exchange of verbal and nonverbal ideas and messages. So you have to have effective, positive verbal communication, which is an open structure to encourage participation from all members of the group. You need to seek feedback, not just about, what the group is doing, but about the process of how you're getting there. So you need to evaluate yourself within the group. You need to evaluate the dynamics of the group. How are people interacting? How are those interactions impacting the efficiency and efficacy of your group work? Members need to all provide practical and useful feedback, which is part of achieving goals. And you have to take that internal and external feedback and actually use it to inform changes. So it's not good enough to hear, well, this is something that we have to do, or this is something we should do, and then not do it. You have to actually implement the feedback to make your group function in a more healthy way. In terms of nonverbal communication, it can include eye contact, facial expressions, body positioning, posture. And a lot of times that nonverbal communication can give clues about what people are thinking, with, taking in mind the cultural context of that. So usually when people will not make eye contact with you while speaking, you might say, well, they're being evasive or they're hiding something. If people lean over you when they're speaking, you might think that they're being aggressive. If they're sitting there with their arms folded, you probably think that they're holding back or they feel uncomfortable. Again, you have to think of those cross-cultural differences like personal space. I'm not just talking about social distancing, talking about that in some cultures, there is more or less regard for personal space. Again, eye contact, silence. Silence can also be part of communication. You have to think about barriers to communication. Is the message you're sending unclear? So if you say, that's an interesting idea, are you really saying it's an interesting idea? Or are you just placating someone so that they shut up? Is the person who's listening to you really focused on what you're saying and taking in the information? Are there distractions in the environment? So like right now, if my dog started barking in the other room, that would definitely distract me from what I was trying to do here. Self-disclosure can be good and bad if you do it within appropriate boundaries. Interpersonal interactions are the result of verbal and nonverbal communication. It's expressed in your attitudes, your emotions, and your behaviors when you interact with people. Usually those things will reflect, do you like someone or dislike them? Do you admire what they do or do you resent what they do? Do you trust them or do you mistrust them? And then there's also the norms, the unwritten rules and expectations of group behavior. And norms are communicated to members different ways. The next component of task groups is roles. And roles, again, are the expected behavior patterns that are focused on position, status, and kind of your expected identity within a group. So for task-oriented roles, you have people who initiate tasks. You have people who gather info for the group. You have people who offer ideas, who help motivate other people to achieve their tasks. Those are kind of the more leadership roles. You may have relationship-oriented roles. So that's people who keep group members happy and satisfied with the group process and interaction. Those will be your mediators, the people pleasers. You have your self-oriented roles. So members seek their own satisfaction or control without concern for other group members' well-being. So if you're getting what you want out of the group, if your agenda is being fulfilled, you don't necessarily care about how the rest of the group feels about it. And you can have either formal roles where you may have a committee with a chairperson, a secretary, or you may have informal roles where everyone just kind of knows what the other people are doing. Then you have the issue of group cohesiveness. So why is group cohesiveness important? A group works better together when the people get along and when their work styles complement each other. So cohesiveness usually develops over time. When you think about our class, the first day of class, most of you were pretty quiet. People didn't speak that much. Think of the first day even of your time in the social work program. But now you chat with each other, you've grown relationships, you've gotten to know each other, you know who you like, you know who you don't like. And that's something that took time to develop. Indicators of that could be punctuality. Are people getting to your meetings on time? Confidentiality is what happens in the group staying in the group the way it should be. Do people have good listening and support skills? Do they know who you are and know if you're going through a hard time in your life? Do they provide constructive feedback for what you're doing, both positive and negative? The sixth aspect of groups is power and status. So power is the ability to move people on a chosen course to achieve a goal. Status is the rank assigned to members in the group. Generally, the higher status equals the higher power, which equals more influence within the group and over the group. So power in the group can be used in three ways. It could be power over, which is dominance. That's power used to make another person act a certain way, sort of a coercive power. You could have power to, which is empowerment, which is giving other people the means to act more freely and with more autonomy. Or you have power from, resistance, the power that protects us from other people's power. So now we're going to talk a little bit about leadership in task groups. So leadership is defined as an act of exerting influence on other group members to direct their behavior, or their attitudes, their activities, or their interactions. So basically you are taking a position where you are giving people directives on how they should and must act within a group. And leadership is often related to power and status, but not always. So a formal leader could be an executive director of an agency, and that's a power based on a formal status. They may possess reward powers we've spoken about, coercive power, referent, or expert power. You also have informal leaders that develop their status through referent or expert power. They could be the ones that are known as being responsible, that are known as being considerate of others, that advocate for other people, that are the most organized and know best how to get things done. Because as we all know, the people with official titles giving them power aren't always the best at getting things done, as evidenced by our national government right now. You have leader-directed versus group-directed leadership. So leader-directed leads to greater structure and control imposed by that leader. So some of the rules of that: never demand the members follow them as if they are gurus. And the leader understands what the group members need and structures the group to meet the needs of the people within it. A group-directed leadership allows group members to have greater control over what happens in the group. So the members work together to determine the content and direction of the group work. All members have equal status. There's no power imbalance. And that can be either good or it can be bad, because it is good to not have a power hierarchy, but sometimes you need that power hierarchy in order to have someone who could be the voice of reason or who has the voice to redirect when the group goes off course. Task-oriented group leaders focus on adherence to process and accomplishing their goals. Their big thing they want to achieve. They just want to get to the goal line and just do what the group is meant to do. The work itself is meaningful. These are the people that like to-do lists and timelines and checkboxes. They find their meaning in doing. So 3 approaches to that. You could be adaptable to group situations with more or less guidance. You can initiate structure, such as organizing work, defining people's roles, assigning tasks, and scheduling activities. And you have to have high expectations for group members and accountability I don't know what the words I'm looking for. Accountability and transparency for yourself and for the members in the group. Relationship-oriented group leaders are more interested in relating to others than whether or not they get to the task. They tend to be less goal-directed. They find their meaning in being rather than in doing. They have a strong orientation to the present, not so much a future objective. So they kind of really want the group members themselves to find the purpose in the work they're doing that's in addition to trying to reach a goal. They demonstrate concern for their group members. Generally, they're going to know what's going on with their group members. They're going to know if they're going through some sort of issues in their private lives. Is there something going on? Is something bothering them? Are they encountering barriers? And they're going to check in with their group members, and they're going to work with them to address those barriers and help them optimize their performance. And they generally tend to be open to workers' opinions. So I'm going to wrap with this. If you want to be an effective leader, and I think social work, we need more leaders. We need more people who are willing to step up into leadership roles. So as a good leader, you need to promote group functioning and healthy group functioning, which means getting your group members involved in participating and motivating them to want to be part of the group. You have to be able to collect and assess information. And that's not just information that informs your work, it's information from your group members. Asking your group members what they see as the meaning in the work that they're doing, what is the meaning of the group, and what is the importance of the group and the work in the world of the members. And finally, in taking action. That involves developing plans, assisting members in plan implementation, and encouraging input, providing direction when needed, keeping your group on task, and being able to mediate and resolve conflict. So that was an abbreviated version of that lecture. If we were in the classroom, I would have had a pretty fun activity planned, but such is life right now. Have a great day and stay healthy.